Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I am your host, Mike Hennan. In today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Sarika Shah and Rishi Shah, the owners of Platinum Dental Care in Canary Wharf, London. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for joining me today. How are you both?
Oh, we're so well, Mike. Thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah, doing great, Mike. Thanks.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being on, guys. Like I said just now, very excited to have you on. I think you are officially the first husband-wife team. So for the listeners and the viewers, that's a little indication of the relationship between you guys. I'm really excited to kind of explore that. I've got a
Brilliant.
few hopefully probing questions because that is a different angle from most partnerships and business relationships. That's great. So without further ado, guys, just tell me a little bit about each of you. So Sarika, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I am by profession a dentist and 17 years of experience, and I can say that now. And yeah, I've got a MSc in restorative dentistry, which I had at Eastman after I graduated. And yes, and now I'm a proud owner of a dental practice in London.
Fantastic. And Rishi, how about you? Because you're not a dentist.
That's right. I'm not a dentist. I'm an econ and statistics graduate. Back in 2002, I think, uh, quite a while ago,
Mm.
and first moved into accountancy with KPMG, and then was in stockbroking for a number of years. And towards the latter part of my career in banking, I was in private banking. And yeah, in 2017, without all the bits in between, we decided to set up our practice in Canary Wharf.
Fantastic. And so from 2017, you both had your own practice, and you haven't looked back?
No, haven't looked back at all.
Never.
No,
No.
no.
Probably one of the best decisions we ever made
Hmm.
together.
Fantastic. Okay. Oh, fantastic. I love that. So before we go any further then, Sarika, just quickly, why did dentistry appeal to you? Or what was the motivation for going into dentistry and becoming a dentist?
Do you know, I never started off wanting to be a dentist, and I'm actually the first dentist in my family, and so proud of it as well. So when, as you do as a student, you always go to your parents, you ask them, what should I do? Or, try to get a bit of guidance. You know what you're good at, and you know the direction you kind of want to go into. And for me, I came from a family of entrepreneurs. Um, you know, my dad had his own business. He had his own industry that he set up, and my mom was a teacher. So I came from quite a varied background, and really for me it was always about finance, going into the finance sector. And then I was in boarding school in the UK, so there's this like long, back in the day there wasn't WhatsApp or anything, so these calling cards that you'd have 20 minutes to speak to your parents every weekend. And I said to them, look, I really don't feel like I want to go into the finance sector. I was very artistic. I was very good at my sciences. So, with the help of my teachers in my school, that really kind of looked into what is it that I was really passionate about at that time. And then they suggested, well, what about one of the degrees in the kind of science sector? So again, I was looking at pharmacy or optometry, and maybe it was just that self-doubt and that belief in myself that maybe I wasn't good enough to be a dentist or apply for dentistry, that I wasn't maybe smart enough. But I was really lucky at that time that I had a lot of encouragement. And then I just decided that I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to do it. And I changed my UCAS form completely at that time. I remember um, all the hoo-ha that happened at that time. And yeah, and applied for dentistry and got in and never looked back really.
Fantastic. So that was how you got into dentistry. Had you always planned on opening your own practice? Like, was that always on the cards, or was that something that came a bit later?
Do you know what? It wasn't something that I'd planned right from the beginning because again, I really wanted to be a good dentist. I really wanted to get the experience. But, being an entrepreneur is in my blood, and, kind of thinking about business and, kind of stepping into that zone was something that was often discussed in conversations with my family. And of course, Rishi came from a finance background. So there wasn't dentistry conversation every evening. There was a very varied conversation between us. So to answer your question, no. But it was something that with time, it became an option that we started to look at more and more and more as time went along.
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. And so, yeah, that's a nice segue into like, right. So how does it that a dentist and a finance like person go in together? Obviously, husband and wife makes sense, but like, why did it make sense to buy a practice like then? And what was kind of like, why did it make sense? Like, what was the overarching like motivation for it?
Sure. I think certain things aligned in terms of where her career pathway was, where my career pathway was. We both were at a similar time looking for something different for different reasons. Me was more to get out of the corporate world. I think you'll find with a lot of people in banking, they either stay in banking all the way to retirement, or they might jump out and set up a business.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a while, thinking of ideas. What can I do for a business? What can I do for a business? And came across a few ideas. Didn't really pursue them when I did my due diligence or whatever it be, right? And at the same time, Sarika and her brother were thinking of buying her brother is a dentist, and they were thinking of buying a practice together. Her brother is based up north, and they were exploring that option in and around London. But what they did, they took me to all the viewings because they needed a numbers guy to help them understand the numbers and the business side and so forth. Or it just made sense, and I was more than happy to go because I find it all interesting. Just business, not dentistry itself was not my passion. Let's be clear. It was business.
Not then it wasn't.
Huh?
Yeah.
Now it is.
No, but now it is. Now I love dentistry. But yeah. So going and looking at the practices, I quickly just saw a little not pattern. It was unusual for me to see, but how typically a dental practice was run by a principal who was the clinical lead and the business lead.
Mm-hmm.
So from everything I've learned in business and setting up businesses and so forth, that's not normally how things are done, right? You will have a product specialist, and you have a finance director and a business manager, or whatever, different type of functions.
Yeah.
Depends how big the company is. But so I found that interesting, and then I guess looking at the practices and when they were operating, I could see, well, there's so many inefficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
I could see opportunities where things could be better, but I could see why they're not, because time is so limited for the one person to do everything.
Yep.
So yeah, that was just sitting in the background. And I was looking at the finances, of these practices that were for sale and so forth, and they all look very interesting. The margins look relatively strong at that time, but the biggest thing I could see is that they could be better.
Mm-hmm.
I could see easily how some of these practices could be better, more efficient, more streamlined, more productive, whatever it be. There's lots of ideas coming through my head without understanding the nuances of running a dental practice, but I could see from a commercial mindset, there's opportunities.
Yeah.
So
it was almost like we amalgamated our talents, we amalgamated our skills together, and it was perfect because that just meant that I could really focus on the clinical side of dentistry and also the dentistry that I was doing, and the things that I was good at, which was on the communication side, building the team, looking at the systems and processes, and, organization of the practice. Whereas Rishi's forte was more on the financial side of things, the marketing side of things. So it was just this perfect blend of these two skill sets coming together, which is the two skill sets that were needed to run a practice efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rishi, you hit the nail on the head. You've got that. In most cases, it's an associate dentist is either starting a practice or stepping up, setting up practice or buying a practice. And yeah, they're great at the clinical side of things, but they've got to quickly learn the business side of things, which sometimes means they don't necessarily learn it fully, which means they drop the kind of the clinical side, which they love, and they kind of wanted to do dentistry on their own terms. But I think the fact that you both have complementary skills. And I think we talked about it in the intro call. Obviously, that overlap is growing, where you're learning more about dentistry or you're learning more about business. But I think that having the two of you is like the perfect partnership.
Yeah. And as dentists, we're not really taught about finance. We're not taught about running a business. There's so much more to running a business than the financial side of it. And we're not taught any of those skills. You're taught how to be a good dentist clinically, but you're not taught how to run a business. So, in that sense, it is tough to run a business and to run it efficiently, to ensure that your business is profitable. There's so much more to it than just the clinical dentistry side. And that's where I think a lot of practice principals have difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely. Rishi, did you, at the start of your career, did you ever think you would own a dental practice?
Never. Never. Not even when I even first met Sarika, that didn't even cross my mind as well, even at that point. Because I think at that point I was still like enjoying banking, going up and doing everything and so forth. So no, it like I say, I think it was 2017. I think maybe the idea literally a year and a half, 2 years before that.
Yeah, gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah. Dentistry was never on my typical radar. It was,
Yeah.
It didn't seem attainable, right? Because I wasn't a dentist.
Yeah.
But now understanding it, I can now see very quickly, actually, a non-dentist adds a huge amount of value. It depends on the practice, obviously. The practice needs to be big enough to give me the ability to make changes or create growth. If it's, if it's a quite a small constrained practice, then we would not be together. And hence why we bought the practice we bought, because I could see opportunities to grow. It was a bigger investment, bigger risk, but could see there's more opportunities to add value. So for sure, yeah.
Fantastic. And so you decided, right, you've started looking at practices, you've chosen one. How did you choose the location, the actual practice that you did? And then kind of rolling into that, like, what was your vision for the practice? Like, what was the sort of overarching like plan for your business?
Sure. Location-wise, I think that was a lot to do with me because it's in Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it was to do with luck.
Luck.
But okay, but you go.
No. Well, no. It was luck that it was available, but it was the reason to go ahead with it and to say this ticks all the boxes from what I could see was because I know Canary Wharf inside out. I know Liverpool Street inside out. That's where I spent my whole career, between Bank and Canary Wharf. And what was important to me is I needed to find a practice that's going to keep us busy. I needed the opportunity to grow. So density of population was important to us. At that time, I understood banking really well in the sense that coming out of the credit crisis, there was a trend that was happening where everyone was working harder and longer for their bonuses and so forth. Everyone was just working longer hours, still earning well, but having to work longer hours. And more, I could see that amenities and services needed to be set up around workplaces, and that's growing in demand.
I think you also understood the demographic of the Canary Wharf clientele as well. So
understanding what I was one of them, and I could see what was important. I could see their working hours, and having accessibility to a good quality service conveniently was important.
But we also saw that, so our initial search was around suburbia. So it was really good when we did research that we had seen a good variety of practices, and that we could make certain comparisons. And then it was just great that, why did we know this was right? This practice was right for us? It kind of aligned with so many different things that were important to us. So in terms of understanding the demographic, in terms of even location for us was fantastic. We could really see the potential for growth. And in Canary Wharf at the time, there was it was mostly just corporate run practices that were in Canary Wharf at that time. So we could bring something new, something different. We could be creative. So there was all these things that we wanted to do that we thought, you know what, this is the practice that we could do all these things in and be able to create something that we would love.
Yeah, Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Anything to add,
No,
Rishi?
I was just saying, yeah, and Canary Wharf, I guess, you know, because I knew the area so well, and I could see the future development plans of Canary Wharf, where there is a mixture between. This is all pre-COVID. Everything post-COVID, everything's changing right now. So, like, this is the reason why we picked Canary Wharf at that time, is because of the mixture between residential and commercial. How the residential plans, the growth plans for the future were quite strong. So that was another reason why, actually, you know, offers a density, but offers you could argue a stability of some sort of residential population there as well. So there's multiple reasons in that sense, but yeah.
Fantastic. And so I don't think I've ever asked anyone this, but is buying a dental practice like buying a house? You know, you just, when you find the right one, you just know. Like, was that? Can you relate, or am I making it up?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think you are right, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Once we found the practice and we got a brief understanding on what it was doing, where it's located, the way it didn't internally might not look fantastic, but where it was set and so forth, we just fell in love with it, didn't we?
Exactly. And I think it was that background research which was really important for us to be able to eliminate and recognize and have awareness around what we didn't want, you know, and start to think about what is it that we did want and what is important to us, trying to visualize that long-term, you know, picture of what we wanted to create. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is like that. You know, we stepped into that practice, isn't it? And we thought, yes, this is it. This is the one.
This is for us.
Yeah, because as much as we are business, we're you could say we're business minded. We were still aesthetically driven. We wanted to build something that we'd be proud of, right? So,
Mhm.
like, if you've seen pictures of our practice and so forth, it's quite an attractive, unique looking practice with all the brickwork and the grade 1 listed features and so forth. And yeah, and we are both a little bit artistic in that sense, and that drew us in as well. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So from stepping foot in the practice, viewing it for the first time, to like closing, how long did that process take? Like the actual buying process, how long did it take?
I can't remember. Is it a year?
I'd say around a year. So again, very similar to a house-ish.
Yeah, yeah,
House
maybe a
is,
bit longer.
shorter. House is shorter.
Yeah,
House
so yeah,
was, yeah.
so yeah, it took about a year. So you finally get the keys. What did the practice look like back then, and like how have you transformed it, like aesthetically, in terms of team, like what, you know, what's it been through since you had the keys?
Gosh, a lot.
Aesthetic.
A lot.
So I have to say that I have great gratitude for the building itself. The practice is based in a very beautiful building. You know, so in terms of the actual structure of the practice, there hasn't been any changes. A commercial property, so there wasn't much, and it's a grade listed building as well. So, you know, there wasn't much that we could change there. But it was a 2 surgery practice at the time. There were 3 rooms, but it was a 2 surgery practice at the time. I remember that there was like the decon room was this really teeny tiny, thin kind of. It was like
Walkway.
a corridor. It was like a
More-
walkway.
more-
That connected the 2 surgeries at the back of the practice, and you know, you couldn't even have 2 people walk past each other. It was so small. So, you know, when we bought the practice, we obviously had invested quite a bit into it. We needed to be able to settle in, understand our team, work in that practice as well to really get a good feel for it. And then, you know, we after how many years? I think it was about two years or so that we did
No,
our first
soon.
refurbishment.
Sooner. It was 1 year later.
A year, yeah, it was a year and a bit later that we did our first refurbishment. And we went through a big transformation in that first refurbishment, right? We did quite a bit of structural change.
Yeah, internal structural changes. So initially, like, yeah, it was a big waiting area, like Sarika says, a couple of rooms.
There was just
And
space that wasn't being used. So
yeah,
we really wanted to
so we
create
transformed.
a
Yeah,
usable space.
yeah.
And so we basically, what we did was we created, completely transformed the two existing surgeries. The third room we turned into a surgery. And then we actually built an entire office space kind of in the middle. So it was like the little hub of the practice. And where there was an empty space in the corner, we turned that into a fourth surgery as well. So again, aesthetically, we transformed everything. We wanted a beautiful, warm, modern-looking practice. So it just completely changed. Even though the exterior of it looked very much the same in terms of there's beautiful wooden beams and bricks. So you've got a very warm feeling as it is, but internally, aesthetically, there was a big structural change in them.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That sounds like a messy renovation. Did you have to close the practice for a few weeks?
Huh. So, new business owners, with taking on a big debt and so forth. Our mindset at that time, we did the refurbishment over 2 stages to get to the finished stage.
Yeah.
Because we've in that process also, so I didn't quite mention, we've upgraded all the equipment to all
Yeah.
the latest. Everything's brand new
Yeah.
from what it was before. So we're talking about 4 brand new chairs,
Yeah.
brand new decon room. Everything,
Yeah.
everything is basically new after the second stage.
Yeah.
First stage, no, me being the numbers guy has got to keep it open. So we did a significant amount of work with minimal closure.
Well, we
Excellent.
begged and begged that most of the work was done over the Christmas period,
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
and that's what they allowed us to do. So they had 3 weeks to get the big work out of the way and the big work
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And they did tell us that, look, there is going to be other bits that we're going to have to do for a good 3 or 4 weeks afterwards. Do you want to open the practice? Do you want to shut it? And we were really lucky that the team that we worked with, they were working into the evening, coming in early, working weekends.
Mhm.
So in that sense, we were
That's
quite
true.
lucky as well.
Yeah.
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 'Cause like you say,
Yeah.
you don't really want to shut the business down. Like it's necessary work, but yeah, just like the cash flow and stuff, you don't really want to let that dry up.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
exactly. It's a
there's
balance.
there's a lot to manage around that as well. To manage, patient expectations when they do come in, to manage staff, because they have to kind of work through loud noise. Patients might come in and it's you can just manage that appointment for them, but it's really about staff as well, and to have to go through weeks of a refurbishment as well.
It's important. Yeah, I think on the staff side, it was important that they were fully involved. We got them really involved in designs
Yeah.
and so forth, or had at least had them the opportunity to feel involved.
Yeah.
Because the more they bought into this change that's happening and the more excited they got, the more they were likely to push through those tough times. We've got someone drilling a drill there while they're
Yeah.
trying to keep that customer service going and so forth. So that was really important, spending that time
Yeah,
and getting
yeah.
the staff to feel invested
Fantastic.
in the
And
process.
talking of team, what was the team like that you inherited? Like obviously it's an existing practice. There's usually a few people there already. How did that go? Like what did the team look like then? How did they take, the new ownership? How did that go?
Yeah.
So
So it was a very small team that we took over. There were 3 dentists, including the owner at the time, 2 receptionists, and two or three nurses at the time as well. And I think it's always difficult when you take over a team because you never really get to meet your team or interview them or get to know them before you buy the practice. So you've literally just inherited this team that you almost have to integrate into. So they were inheriting us in a way as well, and we had to kind of adapt to the way they were working or really try to understand who they were like. So
Mhm.
it's tough because it's not the team that you picked
Yeah.
right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So but the team evolved with time, and
I think
we
but at the beginning stages, I think one thing that will almost certainly happen more often than not, from when you even compare other stories, is when you take over a practice. In the mentality of it, that's a change situation.
yeah
You will always have someone who will at least one or two people who will fall like you. That's an opportunity for them to think, like, you know what, this is a good time for me to make that change. I'll be meaning to make. So
Yeah.
like one dentist,
Or they might not agree with the vision and that you've come into it with, right? So they might not agree with the changes you want to make. And we did come with a whole new energy. We came with wanting to make so much change, and that isn't for everyone, right? So many people are stuck in that comfort zone, and don't want to kind of move with you or adapt with you. So inevitably, I think there'll be members of the team that will leave, and I think that you just kind of have to be prepared for that in your mind, and that's tough because you're not even used to recruiting, right? You've just inherited this practice, you're learning how to run it, and you're working. I was working at that time, right? I was trying to build my books, and then you're suddenly in this situation where you have a few team members leave and you have to recruit. So that's something really new. So there's a lot of things you're kind of thrown into the deep end. It's exciting. But yeah, there's lots of new things to learn.
And now,
And now
team.
we have
How does the family now?
we have a very big team. Yeah,
Yeah.
now we have a
How
team.
big?
We're four surgeries.
Yeah.
Pretty much at capacity. Probably seeing quadruple the amount of patients that we've been seeing before.
Yeah.
And the team has grown to, I think the total last headcount we did was 28.
Yeah, 28
28. Wow.
from
To go from
around
a small
7.
team,
Yeah.
to go from 7, and obviously going from associate dentist to practice owner. This is your first time as like a team manager. That was
Yes.
completely new to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, Mike, is I think that I think all dentists are leaders, right? I mean, you sometimes people say, oh, you're an associate and then you become a practice principal and that's when you're really a leader. I think all dentists are leaders because in a way you're leading in your surgery, you're training staff members even as an associate. So I had years and years and years of experience of, managing team members in a way. So building my communication skills around that, learning so much along the way. And it was almost like I didn't have the belief in myself for such a long time that I could take on such a huge project. But actually, I came into it and I realized that, gosh, I've had years of experience, so I can do this. I just have to keep refining myself, have an open mind, keep learning. And that's exactly what both of us did.
Yeah, fantastic.
To
And
enable our growth.
Rishi, your experience in the finance world, did you have experience like managing teams, recruitment, or was it still kind of new to you as well?
No. So the managing teams and recruitment actually was never in my scope when I was working, because stockbroking was very, very individual, and private banking again is very individual. Yes, there's a small element of recruiting, like recruiting assistants and so forth, but not to the scale of diversity in roles of recruiting a dentist and a receptionist and a nurse and of building a team per se.
Yeah, so that must have been quite nice, the fact that you're learning those particular skills together. Like it's not like one of you's leaning on each other, like you're both trying to figure it out together, which must have been quite reassuring that it's not just you.
Yeah. I think even though I wasn't not involved, but being in a having exposure in a corporate environment, I still understand a lot of their processes. So maybe I was not the hiring manager, but the hiring manager maybe often consulted with me, and therefore I started to understand their hiring processes and recruitments and approaches, which I felt when I came to the practice is something that I could bring in some way.
So you weren't starting from zero. You had you had some idea.
Yeah.
You had the theory. It was just like, how do we execute it? No, fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is actually, I think this is my favorite. This is one of my favorite questions I wanted to ask you is, what is it like working as a husband and wife duo? Like, it's not for everyone. You don't see it everywhere. But how is it for you guys?
Do you know what? We get asked this question all the time, and because so many people say to us that, do you know what? It's I often find husband and wife teams don't really work, or their experience around it is that, there's always a clash of some sort. But I have to say, I really love it. I really do love it. Because I think we just complement each other so well. You know, we're doing two completely different roles. So we're kind of engrossed in what we're doing. And then there's just, certain things in between that we have to kind of liaison or discuss. Our practice manager is very much involved in that decision making as well. So I think that it's been a journey. We don't always agree on certain things, but that's the journey. But overall, yeah, I love having Fishy as my partner.
Yeah, my secret is just look, happy wife, happy life. It's just simple. No, I think it's true. I think what helps is, especially at the beginning, we had a very clear division of responsibilities. And we hardly overlapped at that point. But as like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, as we're learning more and more about, I've learned more about dentistry, Sarika's learned more about business and finance. There's a lot more overlap, but we've got there slowly, and we're there together, and it's great. It's working well. It's it's not only the skill set, it's personalities where we have variances. Sarika's really creative. I'm a bit more methodical sometimes, or not. Well, I don't know if that's the right word, but
very logical in his
logical.
way of thinking. So that makes a big
She's
difference.
a risk taker. I'm a risk manager. So, and it works well because we're seeing both sides of every situation, and hopefully.
And I wouldn't want to say that we don't disagree. We do disagree, but it's about how do we manage those conversations. And at the beginning, there are conflict on ideas, and but the goal was the same at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? So we were all working towards one thing, one vision, one love for something. So in that sense, we were quite aligned that in our thinking. But there has to be a little bit of that. There has to be a little bit of discussion around certain topics, a little bit of disagreement. But we've come to that point where I think that we respect what each other does. And I don't always intervene in some of his tasks. He doesn't intervene in mine because we know that we're competent enough to get on with that and just do that. And we use our time really wisely. We really manage our time wisely, so that we can get together and discuss the topics that are important, where it needs both of our inputs at that time.
Yeah, fantastic. Love that. And so you've already taken the practice from 2 to 4 surgeries. You've taken the team from 7 to 28, which is mind-blowing. What's next? Like, is there any scope to expand the practice further? Have you reached the limit? Is there another location on the cards? What's going through your minds right now?
It's been something on our mind for probably a couple of years. And arguably from the beginning when we set the practice up, we did some forecasting. The goal would have been to have multiple locations. There are certain things that have happened in the sense that even this practice has exceeded what we forecasted that it was possible. And hence we didn't even forecast to have a team of 28 on one site. I think we really we're very humble. We just get on with our work. We're just working on our business, and we're just trying to run a good team, look after, have a happy team, happy patients, and build a strong reputation. And we've just been getting on with it. But I think slowly we're realizing that actually, you know what, we run a really good practice. We run it really well, and I think we've noticed that more when when staff come, staff go, or new staff members join. The constant comment messages, wow, it's a very organized, well-run practice. Whereas I didn't know any different, because that's how I approach everything, or Sarika would approach everything, but I've had no experience in other dental practices before. So I think we now really appreciate and respect the fact that we know how to run a really good practice. We spent a lot of time fine-tuning that for the last 7 years of running that practice, and on some elements we think, well, it's a shame not to replicate this now. So is there another site on the cards? Possibly. Where we are tentative with how we approach that, if we approach that, just because of economic conditions at the moment. We do think that I am forecasting it to be very, very tough for the next 2 years. And how tough will be interesting to see. So yeah, I think at some point for sure, when, that's under review at the moment. But otherwise, in the meantime, I think Sarika with the we want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Like in a sense that we've not really gone into this feeling greedy, like we've just wanted to grow straight away. We've really wanted to create the practice that we were really proud of, that runs really efficiently, the team that we were proud of, and that does take time. But now we have that blueprint that we can just take to another practice if we wanted to, and then incorporate another team or other things. One of the things that I want to do is has been on the cards for a really long time, and I've finally decided to take the leap, is I wanted to set up my own course around female leadership and self-leadership, which is something on the cards for next year, for all kind of female dentists as well. So that's something that we're going to kind of do together as well. So
Fantastic. So there's plenty on the cards in the short term and the long term. Love that. What would you say to anyone thinking about buying or starting a dental practice? So go back to before you were, an owner of a practice. Like, what do you wish you'd known? What do you think it's really important for other people to know before they make this like investment and this jump?
Yeah, I think we can answer this totally together, because I think that you have to have a real passion for wanting to run your own practice, and have a real clear understanding of what that involves. Really do a lot of research, as much as possible in every area, not just like researching a dental practice, but understanding what is involved in running a dental practice. When I buy the practice, what kind of team do I want? What kind of culture do I want? What kind of values do I want? And really setting all those in stone before you start. I think having a very robust business plan from the beginning, and having mentors, or people in certain industries that are going to be involved in setting that practice up for you, if it's a squat, for example, that you have the right teams of people, that you've selected the right teams that aren't going to give you a lot of stress, because it is quite stressful buying, either if you're buying something existing or setting up a new one. But really having a good team in place, I think is really important, but especially a good business plan, a good budget, and setting your budgeting, and just things like that.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think if you're going to buy a practice or so you come to the conclusion that I definitely want to own a practice, fine, and you found a practice to buy, or you found a practice to set up. More often than not, even if you're buying a practice, it takes a year. If you're setting up a SWAT, that could take just as long, if not longer. Use that time aggressively. Plan. Do your business plan. Get your accountants on board early. Get them to start doing your cash flow forecasting. I mean, technically, that should be done at the buying process of an existing practice as well. But if you're setting up a squat and so forth, getting that detailed cash flow forecasting done, so you understand to the level of what are you targeting, what are you aiming for, what are your cash break-even levels. Just being clear, get all those numbers so clear in your mind that they're just simple numbers in the end. It's just like, okay, we just need to take 20,000 this week, right? Then we're clean.
Yeah.
So keep it in a number, keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Use that time to build systems and processes. Maybe you don't know how the actual practice will run in reality, but there's no harm in setting idealistic systems and processes. All these visions and ideas you've had because you've got to the point of owning your own practice, make sure they're all down on paper, and be ready to amend and tailor to the actual practice as you see fit. Working on the other core part of the business that we did, which was, speaking to other people who not many people have done, is we really focused a lot of time on building values for the practice, mission statements, and understanding. And that's the learning curve anyway. You're going to, and goals. Yes, definitely set goals and so forth. So, and be prepared for potentially some sleepless nights. It's
sleepless nights.
It's going to be tough, and you're going to have strong resilience, mental resilience, and still be able to be calm and make decisions, which is right for the business, short, medium, and long term. Not making decisions on a whim based on a short-term reaction of something and so forth. That's very important. I think the biggest stress to businesses starting off is to do with finance. So the more you invest in understanding your finances and creating that level of clear goals and clarity and knowing when things are turning and so forth, and having the cash buffers in place and so forth, then that's great.
Especially because this could be a new area that you're learning. But I think there are lots of difficulties. I think there is, recruitment, I think, is quite tough as well. And managing staff, things like that as well, it can be quite tough. So when we were in the buying process, we were in this tiny little flat in Canada Water, and we had this like massive whiteboard on like one of our walls, and we were just putting up all our ideas and everything that that we were thinking of at that time. Everything was just getting pinned up. So I think it is really good to have an ideas board, and having all that in there, because you'll forget some of the creative ideas that you have and what you do want to do with that practice as well. So, and yes, lots of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
We've, been laying there in bed, 2 a.m. in the morning, holding hands, discussing practice stuff, but I think what we learned from that, and, is balance is also important, making sure that you're not feeling that overwhelmed, not feeling that stress, ensuring that your mental health is, is where it should be, and reaching out, sharing your vulnerabilities, and going out and asking for advice if you need it. It's not always easy. You always think that, I don't want other people to think this and that. I've just bought this practice, but there is a lot. And the more you share and the more help you get, the easier the whole journey becomes.
Fantastic. Honestly, guys, some really good advice. Love it. It's kind of like complementary, both the clinical and the business side of things, which is great. And so finally, if people want to learn more about both of you, or they want to get in touch, is there any ways they can do that? Like the practice website, Instagram?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So they can contact me on my Instagram platform, which is Dr. Sarika Shah. And for Rishi?
For me, you can contact me on my email address, which is rishi@platinumdentalcare.co.uk. And yeah, we have a practice Instagram account. But, I mean, you want to be able to get hold of me through that, but it's Platinum Dental Care London. Yeah, and our website again is our practice website. But yeah,
brilliant, perfect, guys. I will add those details to the show notes. But finally, thank you so much for your time today. Like, really appreciate it. I knew it would be a good episode. Has definitely been a good episode, and I just like the dynamic is great, and I very excited for your future, guys. You've done a cracking job so far, and may there be more Platinum Dental Cares all over London or in the UK.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great afternoon.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Bye.